Whoops. Well, I guess we're early today. How you doing,
This
Rodney?
was this the same link you sent me earlier?
Yeah,
Perfect.
we are. I think that we are live. I think so. Preview mode. Sorry, everybody. I had a little technical snafu here. I think we're good. Anyway, so what's new with you this week? Anything?
Not much of anything. Kind of the same as last week. It's just hanging tight.
You look like you're in a different environment there, buddy.
I am working from home today.
That's nice. And in the background we have, is that the Masters or what?
No, yeah, it's my golf thing where I get playing my simulator back there. It's called TrackMan.
Yeah. And you
It
actually
makes me feel.
actually hit golf balls into the screen or what?
Yeah, it's like you hit it in the screen, it takes off and lands on wherever it lands. But it makes me feel. I'm like a flower, Andy. You know this. I need sunshine and things like that. So when I work from home, I just put on some green grass in the background. I feel better.
Oh man. So here, I want to check something here real quick. I'm making it for anybody that's watching. I had a technical thing and I wanted to see if, oh good, we're live. So we're good. So we're going to talk about first time buyers this week, right?
Yes.
And so I think the most common question is going to be, sorry if I seem distracted, just trying to get set up here. The most common question is going to be, with prices so high and rates what they are, is this a good time to even be thinking about buying a house? So what would I'm sure that's going to be number one question mark.
Yeah, it's a great question. Mine is pretty much a hard yes. And I'll tell you why. One, we have experienced, like you just mentioned, we have experienced across the country an amazing growth in home prices, right? Our equities went up, sales prices went up, values went up. So I don't see it going backwards. I see more of a leveling out. But if you ask me in 5 years, what do you think a price would be for today's, for this house today?
Right.
I think it's going to be higher. No question. I think we still have too many people wanting to move into good areas. And then you mentioned the fact about rates, right? So rates have gone up, but history tells us that that's a cycle. We should see these rates come back down to where if you're buying something today, you should be able to refinance that. If this is the house that you're going to stay in for a number of years, right? You're going to have an opportunity to refinance that and get the house at today's prices, and then just kind of bite the bullet with these rates today.
Well, and that's going to turn into an environment down the road where refinance is going to go off the rails, right? I mean, if you financed it, let's say 5.5% or 5.3%, in a couple of years it's back to the threes. I mean, wouldn't that make the refinance market just crazy?
It should. It always does. It always does. Because people people use their homes for a lot of things. Even their own equity to improve their house and everything like that. So refinances are always kind of popular, especially when they just get crazy popular when rates are really low.
Right.
And yeah, if Fannie Mae stacks in these millions and millions of loans at 5, 6, and 7%, yeah, it would and then the rates drop again to 4, 5, 3, whatever it comes out. It would be a crazy refinance time again.
Yeah, because all of a sudden it's to your benefit to do that, right?
Sure. Yes. Sure. 100%. Yes.
So let's treat today, for the few minutes that we have, just like we're going to be talking to somebody that's thinking about buying a house for the first time. They've never done it before. It can be intimidating. I've worked with an awful lot of first-time buyers. There's a lot of questions to ask and a lot of questions to answer. So let's kind of start at the top. And I would say, if somebody is thinking about buying a house for the first time, the first thing I would say is make sure that you're ready, from a financial perspective, from whatever the circumstances in your life. Make sure that your job is stable, that sort of thing. So what does it take for a person that's just thinking about it? Let's just say they're considering it as an option. What are the things that they should look at to be ready? What would that be?
Right now, I would is right now my number one thing would be, let's talk about payment. Let's get this. Let's talk about, um, and there may be some work to get there, to figure out what payment they want, but if they know a sales price or they've been looking at a house at a certain, the first thing I want to do is discuss their payment with the new interest rates environment that we have. That's first and foremost. And then you mentioned, yeah, everything that I'm kind of saying of supporting home buying, for first time home buyers, and for right now is a great time to buy. The one caveat with that, Andy, is they need to be qualified to do that. It's tough. There's a lot of people that were qualified, with the house costing 200,000 less and interest
Right.
rates 2.5% lower than what it is now. So there's a lot of people that got bumped out of that, qualifying kind of ready status. But everybody, yes, the first thing they need to be doing is in my opinion, is making sure they're comfortable with the payment that they're going to have for the
Right.
next several years.
And typically the question that I get is, what does their credit score need to be? And I know there's no hard and fast rule on that, but that's what they're going to ask. Do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, it's I think anywhere over 620 is doable. It means we can get, for my investors, get an approval and get the loan to the table. But when but you're probably more likely an FHA client. That may be a lot better product for you if your credit scores are a little lower, just because when you have lower credit scores, Fannie Mae has an adjustment table you can Google online, that shows you how hard it hits your rate if your score is that low. So really, a conventional customer starts, 680. They start getting the benefit of a better credit score, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And so that leads us into maybe we've done this in past weeks, but it bears repeating. There's different loan types, just in a general sense, since we're talking about first time home buyers. In a general sense, what's the different loan types?
The different loan types, a lot of first time home buyer are conventional loans now. And maybe you used to see more FHA and things like that in the past, but a lot of, just due to the sales price in a lot of these areas, I think my biggest first time home buyer house this year was over 900,000. So, I'm like, is that do you, just because they're a first time home buyer, they're spending so much now for houses, so a lot of them are conventional. If your credit or your down payment needs to get lower, or you need a state bond program, maybe help you with your down payment.
And those, and
That
there's still programs um, that are available these days.
100%, yes. Our state has them, and you'll need to ask your lender as well, because a lot of lenders have special programs too that, um, for example, for us in our area, we have our affordable housing grants through
Right.
affordable housing that our bank gave them for the grants that we can use. So during this time, a lot of banks are doing things like that. So that's just something you're going to ask your lender, like, hey, make them aware that you're a first-time home buyer. But excuse me, and it'll be and they'll let you know what programs are available.
And there's programs like USDA still out there, right? USDA.
100, yes,
Hmm.
100%.
And those
Yes,
are for underserved. Isn't that for underserved areas where it's specific zip codes, perhaps, or things like that?
census tracts, right? You can go on their own website and check the eligibility of an address you're looking at.
Okay. And so then what you're talking about mostly is getting your finances in order, when I would think is probably where you're coming from. Um, if we're talking about, since we're talking about the programs and stuff, down payment amount is always going to be like a massively important question. Closing costs is going to be an important question that's changed this last few months. The need for closing costs. So FHA is 3.5%, right?
3.5% down, or or a 3.5% minimum requirement from the borrower buyer.
Okay. And then we've got conventional loans that you can design those pretty much how you want, right?
3% down all the way to over 20.
Right. Okay. So if we're looking at a $400,000 house, then 3% down is going to be 312. Half of that's going to be 15. Is about right. Is that right?
It'd be 12,000, yeah.
Okay.
400,000, yeah.
Yeah. Is it three and a
3%, yeah.
half or 3%?
Well, conventional is 3.
Oh, okay.
Conventional has a 97% product, and then the FHA is 3.5 minimum requirement. So if they could put 3.5 down, then and the seller pay the closing costs, that would cover all of it.
Right. And that's what the market has changed so dramatically in the last few months for any buyer, where if you wanted to buy a house, you had to almost get the lottery to get it in. There's multiple offers. People were overpaying like crazy, offering all kinds of things to sellers to get them to accept their offers. But now, because the market's slowed down enough, prices are starting to drop. Buyers are starting to ask for and get concessions, like having the seller pay title expenses, or have them include in closing costs. Are you seeing that happen now?
Yes, we're seeing just as fast as it went away, it's kind of just as fast as it came back. So yes, there are sellers that are definitely negotiating to, I've seen some below list price, which is, a first time, in a while, and they're paying title again, because it was customary for our area for the seller to pay title.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems like the contracts that I'm seeing come through our office, that's what I'm seeing is there's a lot more flexibility. I mean, the houses, they're staying on the market a few days longer. People are getting a look at them. They're getting to do inspections. It's still maybe the best time on earth to sell a house right now, like today.
Yeah.
But it's also it's turned into, to where a buyer can actually buy in a normal mode, if that makes sense.
It does. Well, I mean, you're not giving away the farm literally to buy a house anymore. You're able to negotiate, is what I'm getting at.
Right. And you get to look at it,
You
which
get to
is,
you get to as opposed to yeah, sight unseen. We'll take it.
yeah, really.
I saw this house on Zillow. I'll buy it. You know that sort of thing. Um, so as we, do you think that people have, when it comes to their work, and there's this recession talk, and I know that's not positive, but we're trying to just be a little bit honest here. Is that something that people need to think about when it comes to moving forward? This kind of thing. Got to make. What I'm saying is making sure that your job is solid and you feel positive about that.
Yeah, I think it's already affected us greatly. What it's done, it's affected in my opinion, the ones we're not talking to, right? The ones that's not calling our offices or
Right.
that were maybe looking and was frustrated, and then kind of still sitting on the sidelines, right? So I think it's definitely, and they should be if maybe they're not feeling 100% secure about their positions or their jobs, because that is a huge, first time home buyer. It's a huge undertaking to say I'm going to do this for 30 years. At least is one thing, but buying is a step up for sure. So
Yeah. One of the things that I found down through the years when I would have uh, first time home buyers call me, or I would get a hold of it, whatever that circumstance was, it would come down to, and I can relate to this. There was a lot of people that they had the idea in their head, wouldn't it be a cool thing to buy a house? But they were afraid or fearful or nervous about checking their credit and talking to a lender, because I'll never be able to buy a house and I don't know what my credit score is. It's a kind of a scary thing. I don't want to inject any fear in anybody's life, but what I'm saying is that's held a lot of people back, just being afraid to find out.
yeah, my suggestion would be is that they should figure out, they probably know a lot of people who have mortgages, so they could
Hmm.
find a good lender, just ask some questions, ask their friends or family, get in touch with a realtor or a lender. Right now, that would be my first two suggestions, is like find a realtor, right? Um, it's just a different market. You find a realtor, find a lender that can go over your payments with you,
Yeah.
get you in your right budget, give you some options for programs, and you're going to be a lot better off. And I would also, and I've never said this, but I definitely would be in today's world. I'd educate myself a little bit. I would go on there just because today I feel like our banks um, are offering a lot of different programs, and I would recommend them to get online and to research a little bit, so just so they know what they're being told makes sense. It adds up,
Right.
and then they'll have a better insight of. There's a lot of good information on there. I actually watched a few YouTube videos this morning on some stuff. I thought it was useful, because I knew we were doing this, and I was like, well, what are people saying, So there's
Right.
some good stuff out there.
There is some good stuff, and I think you make a good point of when somebody's thinking about buying a house, get a recommendation. I really strongly recommend that, because you want to find somebody that's actually in this for your best interest. That's what you want to have happen, is somebody that's not going to sell you a loan but help you to buy a house. That's my take on that.
Right.
Yeah. So the next step, that what they're going to do, what we're going to talk about just briefly here, is once you figure out how much you can borrow, then you need to put a plan together on what kind of house that you want. And the way that I do that is, let's say that somebody can borrow, that they're good for 400 or 450 or whatever the number is. in the Nashville area, we'll start searching for properties that have a range from, say, 400 to 500 or 350 to 450, whatever that is. And when you're searching for properties, what people need to figure out is, number one, is the location critical for them? Are the schools critical for them? Are they able to work remotely? Because that's what's changed over the years, is being able to work from home, just like you're doing today, although not regularly. Or do you need to be close to work, And so when somebody's searching, let's say that it's in a Rutherford County or wherever it might be, if they're looking at a $400,000 or $500,000 house, when you pull up the search, and this is going to have changed recently, when you pull up the search, are there plenty of options for you to choose from? Because that's, in my opinion, probably the most important thing for a first-time home buyer, is to have those options.
Definitely. You might not mention it, but I would. I'll say it. It's kind of I always say this. I'll refer to it like this. It's the yard sign mentality. There's so many first-time home buyers that will call the yard sign for the realtor that's listed the property. And my point of this is that if you can start on the front end and get a recommendation for your realtor, that would be a great, or seek out someone that represents you, online or whatever. And the reason why is, for a first-time home buyer, when they call that yard sign, you know that the person that's already listed the house has agreed to terms with the, basically they have their terms with the owner is like, hey, we're going to sell your house. Obviously they want to get the most out of that house, as
Sure.
any seller on the face of the planet and any good listing agent is going to do. The problem comes in is where they call that listing agent and they don't have representation. They're like, well, I'll just save that money. That money's already built in the contract, the agreed upon price. And
Right.
basically what happens is they just lose representation for themselves and negotiate with the person that's already, already signed up with a seller. And I don't want to seem that like a bad thing, because, 99% of the time that happens, what is that realtor supposed to do? They're supposed to take care of that client, right? I mean, they're
Yeah.
supposed to take care of the person that does it. And they do a good job. I've done those transactions hundreds of times, and I've never thought that somebody had a conflict of interest or anything. But I'm just thinking, Andy, you're a special negotiator. If I'm a first-time home buyer, I want my negotiator 100% on my side and negotiating for me, and there's no cost to that.
Well, there's a rule change. It does cost you, but it's wrapped into the price of the house. So,
yes, it does,
It's
but it's right. It's already been negotiated
right.
with the person. Like, if you skipped over you and went straight to that person, they're just going to get double or whatever that term
Right.
turns out to be, right? So
Yeah.
that's all I'm saying is, a first-time home buyer should seek representation for buying.
And I appreciate you saying that. And what he's getting at, or I don't mean to speak for you, what I think you're getting at is using a buyer's agent. There's benefits to that. Now, I'm not at all. I mean, if you're watching from California or Idaho or whatever, we're not trying to sell you anything. We're just trying to make a point that when you're a first-time home buyer using a buyer agent, what will happen is that agent will become familiar with what it is that you're looking for. Maybe you want everything on a single level, or you want a basement that you can put golf stuff in down there, or whatever. That your buyer agent will become really good at knowing what you're looking for. And as things come through, as you're looking at properties, they're going to help you decide if this is the kind of house that you want, because you'll have a history on what the houses you've looked at, the responses that you had. And again, this is a different market because you're going to have more options. And so I would almost go as far as say there might be more options than we've had in a long time. So picking the best house might be worth a discussion. That's what I'm getting at. But a buyer's agent is in it for you to find the best house for you. I always considered it, I had two jobs, is to help you find the house. That's job number one. Number two is help you secure the house. Those are two different things.
Yes,
And
they are.
and finding a house can be focused on different locations, because you know what, if you're new to it, let's say you're new to Nashville or you're new to Boise, Idaho, or wherever it is, you need to get a feel for the area before you can start getting serious about getting a house. So that's just part of it, is the discovery. When people come into town, what I teach them is, if they're not familiar with where they don't know where they want to end up, whether it's Williamson County or wherever, I always have them do windshield time. We'll give them a series of addresses in different locales, and they'll just take those sheets and they'll drive out to these different properties for a day or so and get a sense of where they want to be. And that is more helpful than anything, because looking at Nashville on a map from elsewhere does you like no good, you know. Anyway, I don't know how I got off on that, but buyer's agents really is in it for you, and I appreciate you saying that. So we've talked about getting a loan, the different types of loans, that the down payment, the money you got to come up with, could possibly be less than it used to be with negotiating with sellers. That's a good thing. So now we're going to go ahead and make an offer on that property. There's a lot of decisions that come with making an offer. Wouldn't you agree, Rodney?
Yes. Yeah, the contract is, just filling out the contract with all the dates and all that stuff. That's why, that's where Andy, in my opinion, one of your specialties as an agent comes in, buyer's agent, to you already know what the person's goals are. You know when their lease is up. You know the timing of all of their stuff, right? So now you've got to match it with the timing of the seller. So inspections, and you know what's reasonable for an appraisal and reasonable for an inspection. That's where, a person will get a lot of good advice from their realtor that represents them in this matter as well.
And especially now that you have, I know we brought it up a couple of times, but the market has shifted since we even started this thing just a month ago. The market has shifted pretty dramatically. And if you're working with somebody, you want to be able to get as much house as you can for the least amount possible. You're looking for the best deal. At least I would think most people are. And making an offer is a balance between, it's a balance between having the seller say yes and you being happy. I mean, there's got to be that balance. So something popped up on my screen and it distracted me. That's why I stopped. Sorry about that. But you've got to be able to figure out, will the seller tolerate paying for unappraised or for title expenses, and what do you think the appraisal is going to be, and will they cover some closing costs? And you've got to be able to negotiate that out without blowing the deal, is kind of what I'm getting at. That really threw me off. Sorry, I don't.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Yeah, I mean, that's just goes back to our point, is like, if I have two professionals negotiating, one on my behalf and one on the seller's behalf, you've got two professionals that do this all the time, that know how to keep a deal together, that know how to, hey, this offer, whatever. I mean, you get two unemotional people, working together on that deal versus, that one person trying to be the go between the buyer and the seller, and then we already know who won that agreement because the seller's paying the bills, So
Right.
it's so yeah, it's
And another thing too, Rodney, that's changed. Um, and we keep, at least I keep making comparisons, and that's the reason why today is kind of important. I think uh, being a first-time home buyer today is so different than it was a few months ago. Whatever your situation is financially, because now a few months ago, if you were to ask for repairs, they would laugh you out of the neighborhood. I mean, they're not going to fix anything. But now, if you make an offer and you do your inspection and there's things that need to be fixed, you can more than likely ask for them and get them taken care of. That's how much the market has changed. Where it's there's some buyer benefit now. It's softened. It's not the crazy market for sellers like it used to be. It's a little more imbalanced, or a little more in balance. So, I mean, that's a good thing. And I guess the last thing I'd say about it is expect more change to come. I think there's more changes coming. We're going to know on the 28th, right? And that when the GDP comes out.
Well, I mean, at this point, I'm not even, I don't know what's coming out on what date, but I can tell you this, I've never, it's like, hold on to your seat. The market's changing so fast.
Mm-hmm.
Every day and I'm kind of excited about it. Honestly, I don't like the whole, I don't know, our market for the last couple of years. It's rooted out our first time home buyers. When cash is king and everything. There's 25 contracts. First time home buyers don't have an opportunity to participate in that.
Mm-hmm.
But the last thing I'd mention, Andy, is I've talked about a lot about the rates and a lot of stuff that are negative, but this piece right here, if it won't drive you to buy a house, nothing will. Today's rents are ridiculous. And
Yeah.
I don't know what the situation is on that, like how it's gotten so bad or why, or even if it's supposed to get better, but I know it's bad. And when you can't rent anything like this, I don't know how home ownership is just it should be the bottom of the list for survival almost, because it's going to protect you from at least that.
And you can be pretty uh, certain that rent's going to go up next year. That's for sure. Pretty sure. It's
Yeah, like the mortgage rates or the
no. I mean, like for rent, if for whatever you're paying in rent, you're definitely going to go up next year.
right. I mean, most rents, like when I do an office lease or something, it's always a built-in accrual rate. They're never predicting a bad economy where I get rent cheaper.
Yeah, I think
So,
that the way we could finish it out is probably the best way that you started it, and it seems to me that I heard a guy. He's a professional. I heard him say, if you're thinking about buying a house, just ignore the market and buy the house because chances are excellent that it's going to go up over a period of time. Period. And so you really kind of can't lose. I don't think there's none of that crash stuff. I'm not a crash guy. I don't think any of that's happening. But there's been times when um, it's worse and people did just fine, in '08. And, there was people with worse mortgage rates than they are now that survived nicely. They came through that just fine.
yes, it's yeah, I've said it. The- if you take away anything, if you're a first-time home buyer, you take away two things: go find your real estate professional, your mortgage professional, and do your homework, and you'll be fine. but
Yeah, I
don't
agree.
wait. I mean, and like you said, Andy, we're not selling to, this maybe across the country, somebody maybe in Idaho, like you said. I'm not saying call us. I'm saying go find you a professional that you can trust and it can give you some good information, and it's a good time to buy.
Yeah, and in a few years, you'll be really, really happy about that. So,
Yes, you will.
listen, I've enjoyed today very much, Rodney. Thank you very much, and I love that scenery in the back, man. That is such a cool look.
Thank you, bud.
All right. Hey, listen, that's going to be all for this week. We'll see everybody next week at 1 o'clock, dollars and cents. Thank you. See you, Rodney.
See you, bud.
Bye.